May God bless you. Our story today is the story of the shepherd and the princess, once upon a time in the old days, and in a country. As Rose gazed longingly out her castle window, she sighed as she watched the suitors arrive below for the naming day party. Her lush red gown brought out the rosiness of her cheeks, while her golden circlet glittered in the lamplight, accentuating her noble beauty. Yet a hint of sadness lingered in her eyes. It had been a year since losing her dear mother, and the emptiness still clung to her. One by one, the lord's carriages rolled through the castle gates into the courtyard, disgorging passengers clad in rich silks and jewels. Each new arrival meant another dance and a forced conversation to endure. None had thus far captured her interest. How could they, when her rebellious spirit longed to flee this gilded prison of expectations? Rose dreaded the ball beneath, knowing the evening would drag on forever before she might steal away and find solace in solitude once more. Her feet itched to tread ground beyond stone walls and obligations, if only for a little while. In a small hut on the edge of the royal forest, Ben finished his evening chores as the last rays of sun retreated behind the tree line. Wiping sweat from his brow, he gazed toward the lights of Verdant Field's castle, aglow in the distance. Though only a humble shepherd, for longer than he dared admit, Ben had admired Princess Rose from afar. As he watched the lanterns flicker to life one by one across the battlements, he wished, not for the first time, that he might see her, if only once. He knew well the divide between their stations, hers the loftiest in the land, while he eked out a meager living as a lowly commoner. Often he pondered whether a heart as proud as the princess's might overlook such constraints of birth. But then, realism set in once more, and he resigned himself to unlikely dreams. With a weary sigh, Ben turned from the glowing castle to the humble abode waiting before him, finding solace for the night in simple fare and rest, with only the songbirds bearing witness to a shepherd's hopeless longing from afar. Rose sighed as dance music swelled from the great hall below, muffled yet audible from her chamber. Time to face the evening's obligations with stealing breath. Gliding down the grand staircase, she was intercepted at once by Lord Crossfield, begging for a dance. Their steps passed in polished automation, while polite small talk of crops and trade filled the air, leaving her inner turbulence unseen. One dance blended to the next without cease, as an endless parade of lords vied for her favor, showering compliments upon her beauty with practiced ease. Not one seemed to notice the fire beneath her placid smiles, or the grief that still clawed at her heart since losing her mother. All focused on gilded crowns and titles alone, none offered solace to her private mourning. When at last the Grand Duke took his leave with flowery words, Rose slipped away unnoticed to the tranquil rose garden, seeking respite. There shadows engulfed her from prying eyes, and only then did she allow tensions to bleed from tight shoulders beneath the night sky's soft embrace. Unknown to Rose, Ben had crept near the castle walls that night, hiding within a copse of trees as he watched the glittering ball unfold from afar. Lamps and windows aglow, music swelling and falling. It was a wonderland beyond his humble means. As the hour grew later, guests began to disperse in puffs of silk and laughter down the sweeping stairs. Carriages rattled off one by one into the dark. Still, Ben watched, entranced, until, at last, a solitary figure slipped past the gates. Too slender for a gentleman, she glided toward the royal wood, vanishing beneath bowers of leaves. Curiosity seized Ben's feet before logic might hold them back, and he stole quietly after, to glimpse his beloved princess just once more. Shadows swallowed her fluttering gown, until only the faintest glow remained to follow, winding deeper into the forest, where his eyes had only dared dreamed before. Rose wandered lost in thought amidst the rose bushes, their heavy perfume washing worries from her mind. Only the soft sigh of leaves borne on night breezes spoke into the silence. So wrapped in private musings, she failed at first to notice the footsteps rustling grass nearby. Not until a kindly voice bid her good evening did she start, whirling to find herself no longer alone. They regarded a stranger with eyes gazing upon her in gentle curiosity rather than the usual ardor from suitors. At once transfixed yet wary of this unescorted woodsman, she demanded to know his name and purpose, disturbing her solace. He offered introductions in humble tones that seemed to soothe, and little did either foresee in that chance meeting how their fates had only just begun to intertwine through challenges to come, changing both their lives and the kingdom as a whole in ways none might have guessed. Word swiftly traveled from the royal castle down to the lowest villages. The king had issued a challenge to his daughter, the stubborn Princess Rose. Any man who could accomplish 3 impossible tasks set by His Majesty would win the princess's hand in marriage, regardless of rank or birth. The desperate ruler hoped this audacious proclamation would compel Rose to finally choose a groom, as her continued defiance wore thin his patience. Yet still, she scoffed at the idea of any man succeeding where others had failed. Locked away in her tower, Rose denied the desperate soul who overheard the declaration in the market, and resolved then and there to try for the princess, no matter the long odds against a simple shepherd like him. That evening, as Ben tended to his flock in their small shepherd's hut, the news reached even his remote corner of the kingdom. Though his common blood and lowly station seemed to preclude any hope, his secret love for the princess would not be deterred. As his sheep settled into sleep, Ben lay awake thinking of Rose, her proud beauty, which had ensnared his heart from afar. If completing these mystical trials could win her hand, then win her hand he would. Courage swelled in Ben's chest as he vowed, staring up at the starry sky, that he would prove himself worthy of the stubborn princess's love, whatever dangers awaited. On the morrow, he would make for the royal castle and accept the king's challenge, for true love could accomplish what seemed impossible to the rest of the world. The following morning, a crowd gathered in the castle courtyard as King Theodore prepared to formally unveil his daughter's challenge. When all had assembled, he took to the balcony and announced that very night would see the beginning of a trial no man had ever survived. Whoever emerged victorious from these brushes with death would claim Rose's hand. Silence fell as he called for any brave soul willing to risk the attempt. The rigid nobility knew better than to defy such perils, glancing nervously at one another. All eyes then turned in shock toward the rear, where a lone, familiar voice quietly accepted the king's proposition. Pushing through emerged the humble form of Ben the shepherd, steely resolve in his gaze as it found the stunned princess watching from above. The trials had begun. Princess Rose reacted with the utmost fury upon seeing the lowly shepherd accept her father's challenge. Her porcelain features twisted in disgust as she shouted down from the balcony for the farce to end at once. But King Theodore would not be swayed from his goal of breaking his daughter's stubborn will. He declared the first task would commence that very night, come hell or high water. Though Rose continued to protest Ben's involvement, seeing him as unworthy of even considering, her cries fell upon deaf ears. The crowd quickly dispersed at the king's order, leaving Ben alone in the courtyard, gazing boldly up at the balcony. Resolve hardened his gentle features. For whatever dangers lay ahead in the enchanted wood, his love would see him through to win the princess's cold heart. That evening the trials would indeed begin. Locked away in the tower, Rose paced her chambers like a caged animal, fury evident in every step. How dare a lowly shepherd defy her wishes? And yet, as the sun sank behind the forest's edge, a small, traitorous thought wormed its way into her turbulent mind. What magic or madness could possess such a man to willingly challenge not just her father's threats, but the sinister mysteries of the realm's most forbidden places? What courage or heart's desire burned so brightly within his breast? Shaking her head, Rose struggled to dismiss these ponderings. But alone in the gathering gloom, a sliver of curiosity lingered beneath her pride. For the first time, she found herself wondering, who truly was this Ben? And what secrets might he yet reveal? Should he, by some miracle, emerge from the trials as their victor? Night drew in, and with it the unknown. As the moon rose over the dense wood, Ben stealthily picked his way through the forest. Slender beams of pale light filtered through the canopy, illuminating clumps of poisonous nightshade and treacherous brambles along the forest floor. Ahead, through the grasping shadows, flickered an eerie glow. Ben crept toward it, his weathered boots cracking drifts of fallen leaves and needles with hushed whispers. The glow emanated from a widening gap in the trees up ahead, the guardian beast's lair. As Ben approached the encircling clearing, a tremor shook the ancient trunks. An ominous roar rent the gloom, fierce and feral, raising the hairs along Ben's nape. He slowed his breathing, pressing flat against the largest oak at the glade's edge. Peering through a latticework of branches, he glimpsed the monstrous form within. Moonlight spilled across the silken duvet of Rose's bed as she paced the chamber floor. Despite her objections, a sliver of worry had formed in her heart for the shepherd facing the guardian beast alone. As Ben approached the encircling clearing, a tremor shook the ancient trunks. An ominous roar rent the gloom, fierce and feral, raising the hairs along Ben's nape. He slowed his breathing, pressing flat against the largest oak at the glade's edge. Peering through a latticework of branches, he glimpsed the monstrous form within. Moonlight spilled across the silken duvet of Rose's bed as she paced the chamber floor. Despite her objections, a sliver of worry had formed in her heart for the shepherd facing the guardian beast alone. As the tower's hourglass released another cascade of glimmering sand, a mournful howl carried upon the wind. Rose rushed to the arched window, her silk slippers whispering over the stone. She pressed her palms against the grimy panes, peering through the warped glass into the gloom-shrouded glade below. A colossal shadow writhed within, unleashing upon the night its sorrowful cries. Had the beast claimed another victim in the forest's grim depths? She tried to tell herself that it did not matter that the shepherd was a peasant, yet curled in her breast was a tendril of fear that somehow Ben's end would not be simply another cruel twist of fate. As the beast swung its horned head, Ben seized his chance. He flung loose stones to rattle the far tree line, drawing its enraged roar away from the fleece clinging to its thicket. With haste under the waning moon, Ben sprang from hiding and dashed to the great elm at the glade's heart. Its gnarled bark scraped his palms as he climbed, feet scrambling. Above, the colossal shadow wheeled and charged, talons gouging the earth. Ben flung himself from the lowest bough just as its feral face thrust into the foliage beneath. He rolled, the hot stench of its breath blasting his cheek, and sprang up in a spray of dead leaves. There, in a twisted thorn bush, golden strands caught the frail light. Snatching the fleece, he bolted for the darker wood, as its maddened howls chased his heels into the grasping gloom. As the first glow of dawn stained the eastern sky, a lone figure emerged from the forest's eaves. Golden light spilled through the silken fleece held aloft, wavering in the gentle winds of the morning. From balconies and courtyard walls across the kingdom, gasps rose at the sight of Ben, stepping unscathed from the forest gloom. He had faced the guardian beast under the moon and survived its fury, returning with the first task's prize, rippling gold in the rose-tinged dawn. Word carried swift wings to the lofty towers of the castle. At her window, Rose pressed fingers to lips in wonder, questioning what manner of man had bested the guardian all others failed to withstand. Her surprise mirrored that whispered through the waking streets below, where villagers glimpsed a shepherd emerging from the wood, bearing a fleece that outshone the sunrise. As evening fell upon the castle, Rose gazed from her window in quiet thought. Though he loathed to admit it, a begrudging sense of admiration had formed for Ben's daring and fortune in facing the beast. Word had carried to the royal halls of his feet. Now, having rested from his ordeal, Ben remained in the village, recovering his strength for what mysteries lay ahead. Rose found herself wondering what further dangers the trials might hold, and whether luck and courage alone could see him through unscathed. A flutter of feeling stirred in her breast, foreign yet not unwelcome at the idea of one so humble as Ben, persevering where others stronger and bolder had met their ends. Night's shadows stretched their fingers across the kingdom, deepening the mysteries of the woods and trials, yet to unfold tomorrow. Rose clasped her hands and gazed into the gathering dusk, her mind whirling with questions that would seek answers only in the challenges yet to come. The setting sun cast an eerie glow over the ancient trees as Ben entered the royal forest. Shadows stretched long across the gnarled roots and twisting undergrowth beneath his feet. An owl's hoot echoed in the distance, unnaturally loud in the thickening mist. Ben quickened his pace and his senses heightened for any sign of movement amongst the looming trunks. According to village whispers, strange things lurked amid these mists after dark. Ahead, the mist grew heavier, reducing visibility to mere steps. Ben strained his eyes in search of the rocky path up the mountain. Was that a flicker of ghostly light between the trees? He shivered, grasping his pack straps tighter. Some said the peak was cursed. Its jagged silhouette was all that could be seen through the clouds by day. What mysteries or guardians awaited there under the cover of night? Ben expelled a wary breath, watching it fog before him. There was no turning back now. The wooden chimes around his neck clinked softly with each stride. Their simple magic was his only protection from threats unseen. He had faced wild beasts, but mysterious magic stirred deeper unease. Still, for Rose, he would brave any height or danger, as the first fleece had shown. Squaring his shoulders, Ben plunged into the misty maze of trunks, heading upward into the shadows of the mountain. As the mist deepened, Rose caught a final glimpse of Ben's lantern flickering between the trees. A frown creased her brow as she watched his shrinking light, wondering what dangers lay in wait where the forest swallowed the moon. Retiring to her chambers, Rose couldn't escape thoughts of the mountain's shadowy reputation. Dragons were but one tale. What else lurked in the perpetual fog clinging to its craggy heights? She tossed restlessly, snatching only glimpses of sleep between worries. In her dreams, the mountain rose stark against the stormy skies, as an unearthly roar echoed across the peaks. Rose climbed higher, calling out for Ben despite the rumbling thunder. Through the blowing snow, she glimpsed his lantern flickering among the pines further below and hastened downward. Ahead, a dragon's bulky silhouette materialized through the blizzard, jaws agape as orange light gathered before a blast. From the trees, Ben's startled face turned upward, just as a flame engulfed the slope. Rose awoke with a gasp, her heart pounding as the mountain's shadows seemed to loom within her chamber. For the first time, she found herself praying for Ben's safe return. Ben climbed steadily through the night, grasping the roots and edges of stones. Phantom voices seemed to call from the mist, urging him back toward the safety of the forest. He paused to catch his breath. The village lights were lost far below in a swirling abyss. A shadow passed over the waning moon, causing Ben to start. But it was only a lone cloud traversing the starry sky. He was alone on the mountain, close now to the highest point beneath frowning cliffs. His lantern flame guttered low as clouds thickened once more. A glint amid the rocks above caught his eye, a pale gleam against the darkness. Climbing farther, Ben's fingers closed around something trapped within a narrow fissure. He tugged gently and withdrew a perfectly faceted gemstone, its inner fires dancing in response to his touch. Reconnaissing it as the treasure foretold, relief washed over him. Dawn was still some way off, but the second task was complete. Ben started down with renewed vigor, a dragon jewel in hand, and a lighter heart despite the dangers yet to face before seeing Rose's face once more. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the trees, Ben staggered free of the dark wood. His clothes were torn, and blood seeped from shallow gashes on his palm. Yet clenched within was a gem whose fire burned as brightly as the rising sun. Villagers gathered once more by the pasture, hoping yet doubting Ben's return. A gasp arose from the crowd as he appeared, swaying on his feet before them. In his outstretched hand lay a flawless ruby gleaming with an inner radiance, matching the legends of the peak's fabled hoard. Despite his wounds and weariness, Ben grinned triumphantly at their stunned faces. Once more he held on to the impossible, where others saw only failure. As the kingdom broke into cheers, his name echoed from the castle walls as a proud acknowledgement of a peasant's perseverance against all odds. But Ben had eyes only for the window where Rose surely watched, wondering what new strength of spirit or dumb luck allowed this shepherd to surpass expectations time and again. As Ben recuperated in the healer's hut, whispers of sinister forces behind the challenges grew. But he dismissed such notions, crediting luck, quick wits, and plucking alone for his triumphs. Word reached Rose of the rumors, stirring unrest. She sought Ben out, insisting something more must have aided him. But under her scrutiny, he remained as amiable as ever. "There's no magic in my victories, princess, only what's found in here." Ben tapped his chest, meeting her eyes steadily. Rose found no deceit in his forthright gaze, yet she wondered if humility masked deeper mysteries. His modesty contrasted with that of his peers, who flaunted strength and status. Against her will, she felt doubt regarding spells and dark conspiracies take root. Some inner strength guided Ben where others lacked. That much she couldn't deny. As she departed, Rose glanced back to find him resting peacefully as birds gathered outside his window, unafraid. For the first time, hope mingled with her admiration for the humble shepherd. Darkness fell over the kingdom as sinister forces sought to sabotage the trials. Mysterious thefts and attacks against the villagers left the people fearful. Rumors echoed of something lurking in the woods, beyond the bounds of humanity. That night, the moon rose blood-red over the foreboding trees. Ben prepared to enter the somber forest, knowing its ancient mysteries concealed untold perils. Word reached the castle of strange events abroad, and Rose awaited Ben's return anxiously. Within the mist-shrouded wood, Ben stumbled upon a felled village. Its occupants vanished without a trace. Suddenly, a shadow attacked, but Ben fought back bravely. He prevailed only to discover the assailant was not human, but something twisted by fell magic. Ben pushed onward toward the cursed lake, aware that each step brought new threats. Behind gnarled branches, he spotted a glint of silver. The water's shimmering surface was in sight. But as he reached the shore, a dark presence materialized with sinister intent. Through cunning and strength of spirit, Ben overcame the evil that stalked the wood. He emerged at dawn, clutching the lake's essence, wounds both external and internal now healed. The kingdom breathed relief at his triumph, though deeper shadows remained in the forest's heart. As night fell, Ben steeled his resolve and entered the woods. Though he was exhausted, his love for Rose drove him on. Deeper into the mist-shrouded trees he walked, strains of an eldritch chorus rising amid the groans of twisted branches. Figures seemed to dart between the trunks, yet whenever he looked directly, only swirling fog remained. Wary, Ben. Tread carefully. The woods grew darker still, as if swallowing the last gleams of daylight. He heard padded footfalls circling and caught flashes of luminous eyes peering from the undergrowth. Whatever stalked him closed in, cutting off any escape. Ben stood back to back with an unseen presence, his senses straining against the enveloping shadows. Just as an icy claw grasped his shoulder, a chorus of mournful howls filled the night. The presence hesitated, torn between prey and pack. In that moment's respite, Ben fled as fast as his legs could carry him. Breaking free of the mists at last, he turned to see ominous silhouettes retreating into the forest depths. Though danger was pursued, his mission remained. Ben pushed on, wary yet determined. The forest seemed twisted, rejecting all light. A shape slipped between gnarled trunks. Ben followed, stepping where the mist curled thickest. The trees parted into a small glade. Silvery wisps rose from a perfectly still surface, revealing the lake of mists in the moon's pallid light. Ben approached, enchanted yet wary of illusion. Ripples appeared, too precise to be natural. He watched them form letters asking for his purpose and promising power if he turned back. But Ben had not braved so much to quit now. Speaking calmly, he spoke of his love for Rose and his duty to see this through. The response came in the form of a serpentine form rising from the depths, threatening to drag him into eternal dreams. Undaunted, Ben stood fast inside, battling panic. If force would not persuade, another path might. He offered tribute in song, praising the beauty of mist upon water and the moon upon both. The creature listened, judgment fading. It dipped its frilled head, bidding Ben take what he needed. As mist curled around his hands, Ben smiled, hope renewing in his heart for what lay beyond the wood's edge. With care, Ben filled his bottle from the mysterious depths, but as a silvery mist curled around his arm, an icy claw grasped his heart. Shadows swirled in his mind's eye, twisting his thoughts. Ben struggled as ancient malice seeped into his veins, muting his will. Through the haze, he sensed the true cost of crossing this eldritch barrier. Ben flew into a panic, fighting the invasion with all his remaining strength. Memories of Rose buoyed his spirit. Her smile warmed even the coldest of nights. Her steadfast faith had guided him this far. Drawing from her light within, Ben wrested back control, severing the tendrils of darkness before they took root. He emerged shaken but triumphant, bottle in hand, the last rays of hope holding back the encroaching night. Exhausted, Ben turned for home as twilight deepened the mist-shrouded trees. Would he make it back before the curse consumed him? And if he did, what horrors might it unleash upon the unsuspecting village? Ben redoubled his effort, the forest seeming to close in behind him. As Ben emerged from the forest, the villagers saw his haunted eyes and raced to fetch help. Within the castle walls, Rose tended to him tirelessly, nursing Ben back from the brink. Through his feverish ravings, she gleaned fragments of the malevolent force infiltrating the woods. More attacks had come, and Ben alone seemed capable of resisting their influence. As Ben regained clarity, he and Rose pieced together a dark plot to divide the kingdom through fear and chaos. Working as a team, their quick wits detected a pattern in the seemingly random acts of violence and theft of enchantments. Rose realized her pride had blinded her to Ben's steady heart and courage. Seeing him now for who he truly was, feelings long suppressed awakened within her. When finally Ben arose, renewed strength and purpose filled his gaze. Rose took his hands in hers, asking what must be done. A loving smile crossed Ben's lips, and together they ventured into the night, hand in hand, to put an end to the shadow looming over the land. In riding to its defense, their bond was sealed in the light of a love that would not be overcome by darkened magics. That evening, as the full moon rose over the gleaming parapets of Castle Verdun, the entire kingdom gathered in hopeful anticipation within the royal courtyard. Princess Rose stood resplendent in a gown of misty silk, her raven locks crowned with delicate ivory roses. Beside her was her loyal champion, Ben the shepherd, dressed in finery though still modest in bearing. King Theodore stood proudly before his subjects. Tonight, the final trials are complete, and our cherished daughter has found a worthy match to stand by her side. If Rose agrees, may their bond be blessed and their future filled with joy. Rose turned to Ben, taking his work-roughened hands in hers. For long have I defied my fate, yet through your courage and constancy of spirit, you have shown me the true meaning of love. I vow to honor and cherish you, my shepherd, for all of my days. As Ben squeezed her hands in return, the crowd burst into cheers. But in the distant woods, another reaction was unfolding. With an unearthly howl, the shadowy forces amassed for one final assault, bursting from the trees in a torrent of night-colored fury. "The forest demons have come," cried the king. Drawing their blades, Ben and the royal guard rushed to meet the encroaching horde. Though dread filled all hearts, Rose took strength from Ben's steadfast gaze as she aided the wounded. Through ingenious tactics and faith in each other, they succeeded in routing the darkness once more. The next sunrise saw a joyous celebration, with Ben and Rose marrying before a beaming King Theodore. Crowning Ben as prince consort, the king declared the trials a blessing that brought forth a leader of strength, spirit, and compassion to guide their kingdom to new eras of peace. And so the tale of the stubborn princess and the clever shepherd ended in a love that would endure through lifetimes yet unknown. As the monsters surged forward, Ben hurled himself into the fray with a booming battle cry. He swung his staff, landing crushing blows that sent the demons reeling. Yet for each foe felled, two more appeared to take its place. Seeing Ben begin to tire under the onslaught, Rose grabbed a fallen sword. Chanting an incantation handed down by her sorceress mother, she summoned a bolt of lightning that blasted a wide swath through the teeming masses. For every strategy the creatures employed, Ben and Rose matched them with ingenious tactics of their own. When the demons turned invisible, Rose scattered diamond dust that lit their true forms with an ethereal glow, allowing Ben's attacks to find their marks. As waves of spectral phantoms materialized to deceive the guards, Ben invoked ancient hymns that laid the ghosts to rest before they could sow chaos in the ranks. Back to back in the swirling melee, he and Rose fought as one, covering each other flawlessly. Yet even their combined powers began to wane against the unrelenting shadow horde. Just as the last flickers of hope seemed to be on the verge of dying, a bright light flared on the horizon. A cavalry of noble steeds crested the hills, bearing King Theodore, and an army of knights came to aid the besieged kingdom. With the reinforcements' arrival, the tide finally turned against the monstrous forces. Locked in a duel against 3 towering demons, Ben heard Rose cry out and spun just in time to block a killing blow meant for her. Her grateful smile rekindled his flagging strength, and with a final roar, he pushed the beast back into an abyss, banishing their darkness from the land forever. The joint forces battered the last remnants of the shadowy horde. As the dust settled, the scope of the insidious plot was laid bare. Bound and kneeling before the king was none other than his own brother Edward, long envious of Theodore's crown. With him were traitorous lords who sought to sow chaos across the realm, allowing Edward to seize control amidst the panic. "Through malice and deceit, you endangered innocent lives," said the king sternly. "Now your schemes end here." But Edward only cackled. "The fell powers I unleashed cannot be undone so easily. This land will know no peace." At that moment, an eldritch howl filled the sky. From the forest glade emerged a towering specter, a demon drawn through the veil by Edward's dark sorcery. It loomed over the kingdom, casting all in writhing shadows. Ben and Rose stepped forward, clasping hands. Through their bond, a radiance swelled within, love's light to banish the darkness. Rose channeled the glow into a searing beam that struck the demon, weakening it. With a mighty battle cry, Ben drew upon the spirits of courageous souls who gave their lives defending the realm. His sword blazed, and with one blow of valor's edge, the demon was sundered into nothingness. The battle was won. Edward and his followers were sealed away, and tranquility returned to the land at long last. Under the rule of Theodore, Ben, and Rose, the kingdom would thrive in an age of justice, prosperity, and everlasting peace. The shadows lifted, revealing a scene of celebration across the kingdom. King Theodore turned to Ben, his eyes shining with gratitude. "For defending our people through your valor and wisdom, I name you Sir Benjamin, a knight of verdant fields." Placing a golden circlet upon Ben's brow, the king continued, "And now, with evil vanquished, there is one vow left to seal." He joined Ben's hands with Rose's smiling ones. "My beloved children, you have faced trials that would break even the bravest of souls, and emerge stronger through your bond. Now let your love for each other be declared before these witnesses. Do you pledge to stand united through all of life's adventures?" As one, Ben and Rose echoed their vows to cherish each other, always. With a joyful cry, the kingdom erupted into cheers, and flowers rained from the balconies. That night, celebrations lit up the realm. In streets awash with laughter and song, commoners and nobility alike rejoiced in the victory over darkness and the hard-won peace. Around countless hearts, the tale was retold of the humble shepherd who dared believe in love, and the princess whose heart he stirred from ice into an endless summer. And so, as the bonfires shimmered into the starlit sky, a new age of hope had risen for the land of verdant fields. As the dawn's roseate light crested the distant peaks, Ben stirred from slumber and gazed upon his bride's fair countenance. Rising gently so as not to disturb Rose's dreams, he made his way to the balcony. There he watched the sun's first rays gild the dew-laden leaves, revealing a forest gleaming with promised hope. Memories of shadows past now seemed as distant as a fading dream. Where once mysteries lurked, now there was only the promise of discovery hand in hand. Ben sensed, rather than saw, Rose take her place at his side. Leaning into her soft embrace, he knew only gratitude for the love that showed them, that darkness need not endure, and that courage and faith could vanquish even the deepest doubts within. And so, their lives newly begun, Rose and Ben departed together that morning. Through sheltering boughs they wandered, not as solitary souls but united in purpose and kindred spirits. Where once stood barriers of birth and station, now flourished understanding and comfort in each other's arms. Their kingdom had found in them leaders to guide with empathy, resilience, and a vision of a brighter future for all. As for the wood whose fringes they tread, none could say what mysteries it yet held, but the lovers knew in their hearts that wherever tomorrow's road may lead, so long as trust and devotion lit their way, no shadows could overcome the light of their love, and so peace dwelt forevermore in the land of verdant fields. And here the story ends. May God bless your time. Follow more stories on the Souk El Hakayat and Stories channel, and do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell button to receive all new updates.